Hi, good evening, everyone. Faisal here. I'm the founder of Bits. We're just going to wait another few minutes before starting. Great. Welcome, Danny Brown. So this is our first Instagram live, so please bear with me if anything goes wrong. The way that we're going to run this is basically the same way that we run all of our office hours, which is basically questions and answers. So we have some questions already that some of you have sent in. So we'll start by going through those, and then from that point on, any questions that you have, just post them in the chat, and I'll pick through them one by one. Good. Actually, I just wanted to start by sharing an update on Bits, and particularly what's happening in the lending industry right now. Some of you, again, just an introduction for people who are joining now. My name is Faisal, and I'm one of the founders of Bits. Some of you may have noticed a couple of weeks back, the FCA announced that they were going to be doing a review of basically credit, unsecured credit, which would be credit cards and loans and so on. And Bits was fortunate to be one of the 25 companies that was invited to participate in a series of roundtable discussions with the FCA to determine essentially what the course of the future regulation of the unsecured credit space is going to be. So we participated in the first of three of those discussions earlier in the week. And I can share from that there was, as the FCA had mentioned, when they announced this roundtable and this review, that they were taking a close look at basically buy now, pay later, so companies like Klarna. And so indeed, that was the focus of the first roundtable. There was a lot of discussion from different stakeholders around, is this something that is good for consumers? Is it bad? There was also a discussion around just the changes that have happened from the rise in digital lending. So one of the topics that came up was just around the fact that it's actually quite hard to reach a human now. It's just part of the reason why we do these office hours. So we will keep you posted as those roundtable discussions progress. But so far, it looks quite promising. And indeed, I think some of the topics that we've heard from you through our one-to-one calls were discussed there, so that's positive to see. I'm just gonna start now. So I see a question from Danny Brown, but let me actually just start with the questions in the order we got them. So the first question that we had from, which was from Chantel, was Chantel had a question which was, what are the rules on how to use credit cards to raise your credit score? So I think there are a couple of things that, how should I answer this? I think there are two basic rules to follow when you're using credit cards to build your credit score. The first rule is don't spend more than 30% of the limit. That means don't ever spend, that doesn't mean that on the payback date you shouldn't have more than 30%. It's just do not ever have a balance on your credit card that is more than 30% of the limit. It doesn't matter what your limit is. If your limit is £200, still, please don't spend more than 30%. What happens is the minute you go over that 30%, your score starts to drop. Why does your score drop if you use up a lot of your credit card limit? Because the scoring algorithms basically think that you're in need, that you're in a tight financial situation. So first rule, Chantel, is don't spend more than 30% of the limit. The second rule is pay back your balance in full every month. Don't roll it over. It's just a good rule to follow, both for building your score and also to avoid paying interest. Very, very common mistake that we see is people will get a credit card and they'll spend a lot on it, thinking that, so you get a small limit credit card like £200 and you'll spend almost all of the limit and pay it back in full. And you're probably thinking, well, I'm going to look good because I'm showing that I can use a lot of my limit and pay it in full. That is not true. Remember, if you're using your full limit, even if you're paying it back in full on the payment date, it doesn't matter. You're over 30%, your score will go down. So don't do that. The second question that we had sent in was from Yana. So Yana said, when will this card show up on my credit report? So to be clear, we're only reporting to Experian right now, although we do have TransUnion now coming through the pipeline as well. It should show on your file from the date that you sign up with us. It's usually 6 weeks, so it depends on what date in the month you signed up. Basically, we report once a month, right? So for the anyone who signed up in October, you should see this on your file basically by the 23rd or 24th of November. The third question that we had sent in beforehand was from UNSC. UNSC had said, can you apply for a business loan with a good credit score but no job or experience? I mean, you can certainly apply. I think the question is, are you going to get approved? We don't have a lot of experience with business loans. What I can share is that if it's a small business, then they will definitely run a personal credit check, and in some cases they will take a personal guarantee from you as well. So if you have a good personal credit history, that's a good starting point for getting a business loan. But I think ultimately they're going to look at the merits of the business when they decide whether or not to give you a loan. So those are the questions that we had beforehand. I am now just going to start looking through the questions that we have over here. So Danny Brown has a question, which is, I see one of our investors there, Ricardo, hi. Danny Brown has a question, which is what made me start this business. So, I'm an entrepreneur, so I've been in financial services for 20 years. I'm also an immigrant, by the way. I've spent most of my life outside of my home country, which is Pakistan. And I moved to the UK 10 years ago, and frankly, like the biggest problem I had was I wasn't able to kind of do basic things. I wasn't able to rent in my name for 2 years. I couldn't get a mobile contract for the first year, and I couldn't even open a bank account. So this was a different era. It was the year 2010, but I struggled a lot because I didn't have a credit history, and that combined with me wanting to start a business, this became, how to help people build credit when they're new or don't have a rich credit history. This was a problem that I started out trying to solve in 2018. So it was basically my own experience, I would say. Great. Looking through the questions. The next question is from Nahid B. So Nahid's question is, does increasing your monthly payment midway make a huge increase on the score? And how long will it take to see the difference? So I think the first thing to note here, Nahid, is when you upgrade to a higher plan, it won't appear immediately on your credit report. Just like there's a 6-week lag for the initial reporting to happen. Similarly, when you upgrade, it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks before it actually shows on your file. So that's the first thing to note. I think it is clear to everyone that the higher the plan you're on, the higher the limit, the more impactful it is, the more your score is going to go up, the more favorably lenders will look at it. But I did want to say something on that, which is the length of time that you have the length of time that you have any good credit account is arguably more important than the limit. This is why, by the way, whenever you apply for any form of credit, you would have noticed that lenders will always ask you what your address history is for the 3 years prior. The reason they do that is, one, to find your file, your credit file, but second, they're trying to gauge how stable you are, right? So, it's the same rule that applies to address history that applies here. If you're opening and closing things and hopping around every few months, that signals instability, that signals financial immaturity. Lenders are used to seeing people who've had the same good credit accounts for a couple of years. And so more than like trying to ace, the number, the limit, I think what you should be trying to do is build a long-term stable history. And so to that point, think about what would be affordable over a 2-year period, right? Or a 3-year period. Is the plan you're on something you think you can afford for that long? If it isn't, then you're probably on a plan that's too high for you, right? And so always think about the long term here. Your score may go up pretty quickly with bits, but I think it's perhaps a bit dangerous because you have to look at the long term, right? Even if you're on a 999, I'll give you an example. My score right now is 996, so I'm 3 points away from perfect. Would I ever cancel bits or would I cancel the credit accounts I have? Absolutely not. because I know that even though I have a good score, if I start doing this hopping around behavior, all of it goes to waste. So pick something that you're comfortable with for the long term and then stick with that. That applies to us, but equally it applies to all of your other good credit accounts like mobile contract and energy bills. Got it. The next question comes from Danny Brown, which is, what's the story behind the name GetBits? This is a good question. So the concept of bits has evolved over time, and in a previous concept that we had, the name kind of made sense over there because you were putting down some security deposit, giving a bit, and then getting a bit of a loan. But that was a while back, and we just kind of stuck with the name from that point on. I hope I didn't miss any questions on Instagram. If I did, please, Gigi, feel free to let me know. So for anyone who has just joined, a very warm welcome. I'm Faisal and I'm the founder of Bits, and the way that we're running these office hours is basically type in any questions that you have and I'll tackle them one by one. So we have a rare moment here where anyone can ask a question. Right, so our next question, if you get a CCJ, how long should you wait before applying for new credit, and is it the end of the world? It isn't, it isn't, nothing is the end of the world. Remember that your credit file is like a 6-year revolving thing, right? So if whatever goes on it today, whether it's good or bad, in 6 years it'll disappear from your credit file. So nothing is completely irreversible. It's just that if something bad does happen, then it takes time to recover from it. Now, the question around a CCJ, I think it's probably worth clarifying two things, right? So the first, around the CCJ, for those of you who don't know, it's a good thing. CCJ means county court judgment. When you default on something and you don't even pay back, you don't pay back, and it's gone through the very end. At the end of a default lies a CCJ, where basically the person you owe money to goes to a county court and says, I want a judgment against this guy, he has to pay me back. That's a CCJ. It's actually not anywhere near as scary as it sounds. Most people's experience with CCJs is, frankly, they don't find out about them until months later. It's kind of like getting a parking ticket, sadly. But on the point of CCJ, I think that there are 2 points to make. One, the reason why you got it, if you're thinking of a mortgage and you get a CCJ, then the reason how you got the CCJ actually does matter. Mortgage applications are perhaps the only form of credit where it's still not fully digitized. So what I mean is, when you apply for a mortgage, you go through a broker, you will have the chance to tell your story. You will have the chance to explain to a broker and through a broker to the lender why you got the CCJ. Now, if your CCJ was because of something like a parking ticket or even a mobile phone bill, it's actually not bad. A lot of high street lenders will totally dismiss CCJs caused by parking tickets or mobile phone bills because they realize how easy it is to get it right. And frankly, it's not really a reflection on your credit worthiness, depending on why you got them. But if if it is one of those two things, it's actually not that bad. It can be explained to a lender through a mortgage broker. But which takes me to my second point, which is that once it happens, you got to pay it off. I mean, this is a very common question that we get, which is that basically, I got a CCJ and my score is down. Should I even bother paying it off? Yes, you should bother paying it off. Now, the reason is that if you ever apply for any credit, during those 6 years that a CCJ is on your file, if you try to get a mortgage, the first thing that a mortgage lender is going to look at is your public records. Public records are all bad. If you have a public record, that is a bad thing, because public records are records of CCJs, IVAs. So lender is going to see, does this guy have a public record? If he does, or if you do, then they're going to see, did you pay it off or not, right? So imagine the scenario. You're applying for a mortgage, you have the down payment ready, but you have a CCJ of £300, you never bothered paying it off. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, one, because mortgage lenders have automated rules. If you have an unsatisfied, unpaid CCJ, it's an automatic rejection. So for that reason, if you have a CCJ, even if it's in the distant past, if you are thinking of getting a mortgage, pay it off. The £300-400, whatever the value of the CCJ is, it's not worth it. Just pay it off, make it appear as satisfied. So yeah, I mean, by the way, one more very common question that we get on CCJs is, and this is probably the most unfortunate one, is I got a CCJ, but I don't know how to pay it off. And this speaks to the nature of how easy it is to get a CCJ in this country, right? It's and I tell you, it is a genuine problem. It is probably one of the few credit questions that I don't have an answer to, is how do you find out who you got a CCJ from? You can certainly follow the trail. You can go to the lender and then find out which collection agent they gave it to. You can even try, the name of the county court should be on there. But the sad thing is, actually, if you go to the county court, it's not a guaranteed thing that they will tell you. So it's, in theory, they should, but in practice, it is a very difficult problem. If you are in the situation where you got a CCJ but you don't know what to do, email us. One other point of recourse you could have is the ombudsman. You could force the ombudsman. You could ask the ombudsman to basically force the lender to come to you. So, so that was on CCJs. The next question was from Nahid. So Nahid says, on average, how long do you think getting a perfect score takes? Very hard to answer that, Nahid. It all depends on what your starting point is. If you want to know, exactly how long it'll take, in the Experian app, so if you download the Experian app, they have this section which shows you your projected score over a period of time. So they'll show you what your score will be in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and so on. And that's actually pretty accurate. To see this section in the Experian app, the projected score section, you do need to have a credit expert subscription. Basically, it's Experian's paid subscription. I would highly recommend doing it for at least 1 month. Pay the £15. It is absolutely worth the money. See what your projected score is. It really is amazing. So that'll answer your question around how long it'll take for you to get to the perfect score. The next question is, if you've just moved to the UK, where should you start with building credit? If you've just moved to the UK, get your name on your energy bills, electricity, gas, water. There can be multiple names on energy bills, so if someone else is already on it, that's fine. Just get your name added. Get your name on energy bills, get a mobile contract, and get a credit card. You can, obviously, BITS is one option. If you can get a credit card through your bank, that's fine as well. So these are the 3 things that I think you should be doing if you've just moved to the UK. It may not actually be possible to do all 3. The first one should be possible, name on energy bills. Second one, mobile contract, you probably won't get it until you've been here 6-12 months. The third one, credit card, you probably won't get a bank credit card immediately either. BITS is, however, an option that will be immediately available to you. Another version of this question should be like, if I'm trying to start building credit, what should I not do? On this one, I would say, please don't take out loans. Loans it's a very common behavior, by the way. Like, people will take out loans, guarantor loans, personal loans, credit building loans, trying to build credit. Now, I can understand why you would do that, because there's not a lot of good ways to build credit. The problem with a loan is twofold, right? One, if you miss a payment, then it backfires. Goes down, score goes down instead of up, and you also then have fees to deal with. But the second biggest problem that I have with loans is the signaling, right? In the UK, because of GDPR and privacy rules, lenders, when they look at your file, they can't actually see the names of companies on your file. So if someone looks at, the BITS account, they see the type of the credit, which is a store card / credit card, but they don't see our name. It looks the exact same way as an Amex would, right? With loans, if you take out a credit building loan, it's usually small value loans, lenders will not see that it was a credit building company. They're going to assume that you needed the money. And that is not a great signal to send, right? And so because of that negative signaling, I'm not a big fan of taking out loans to build credit. I know it is a popular thing that people do, but frankly, I think you can get by without doing it. The next question we have from Nahid is, if you have paid off a default account, how long will it take to be removed from the records? Nahid, default is not going to be removed from your records. The status will simply be updated to satisfied. How long does it take after you've paid for the status to be updated? 6 to 8 weeks, basically. But do track it, because lenders sometimes become a bit... The banks are generally pretty good about reporting updates, but if you're dealing with an online lender, you probably should be tracking it on your own. Next one is from Majfraz. Maj says, hi, I joined BITS 3 months ago. I got my first increase in score last month for 42 points. Thank you for that. Most welcome. I hope it continues. The next question we have, if I've just entered an IVA, can I start improving my score again, or should I wait till it's finished? That's a very good question. So on the topic of IVAs, if you've just entered, and it's been less than 6 months since you entered, then you shouldn't use BITS. You shouldn't try to get any new credit. Just don't do anything, basically. When you've had such a major event happen, like major credit event happen, it's better to just like stay silent for the first 6 months after that and not do anything. This applies to IVA, this applies to bankruptcy, but as far as IVA, first 6 months, don't do anything. After that, yes, BITS can help. You can sign up. Just if you do sign up, don't do anything higher than the £12 a month plan, because on an IVA, you're not allowed to have more than £500 in credit. So if you've just entered, don't use BITS. If it's been a while, more than 6 months, then yes, BITS can help. Next question we have is, how can you check if a default account has been satisfied? As I've paid it off, but it still shows on ClearScore. So you should see actually, you should actually see the balance. So when you look at ClearScore on this defaulted account, it should show the balance. And if it's been fully paid off, then the balance should be 0. Yeah. So I see a couple of people joining now. Just brief introduction. Faisal here, founder of BITS, and we're just doing this. We're doing these office hours as a Q&A format. We are actually just in our wrapping up now in our last 5 minutes. So if you have any more questions about us or about your situation, feel free to write them below. I would also add, by the way, we have a lot of really, really good video content. So if you go to our website, actually in the app now, if you look at our app, you'll see we now have a videos page, and we're going to keep adding new videos there. I think that's a great way to learn what the common mistakes are when you're trying to build credit and other things that you can do. One more thing which I wanted to mention to people who are watching, Experian earlier this week launched what they call Experian Boost, BOOST. This is an absolutely amazing product and you should use it. What it is basically, it's completely free service. So with Experian Boost, you go to their website, log into your account or on the app, you connect your bank account, your main bank account, you connect that. Experian will look through it to see if you have any like regular subscription payments going out to Netflix and council tax. If they find any such subscriptions that meet their criteria, they'll boost your score by up to 66 points. You don't have to pay a fee. It's completely free. You just have to connect your bank account, which I understand. I say you just have to. I understand there's an element of you may have some doubts about what that means to just connect your bank account, but what I'm trying to say is they're not going to charge it or anything. You're just sharing your data with them. I can understand if you're not comfortable doing that, but if you do that, your score will probably go up. What the range that they say is between 0 to 66 points. It doesn't really compete with us. It's totally different. But I think, yeah, I mean, you should definitely do that. It's a great way to build your score without paying anything. So we have the next question. We just have a few minutes, so I'm going to wrap up here. The next question we have is, my PayPal counts towards credit score. Is this valid? So if you have PayPal credit, then yes, it will. But a PayPal account by default doesn't count towards your credit score. But if you're actually if you're using the PayPal credit product, then it will. Does settling the next one is, does settling a default as a partially settled affect your chances of getting a mortgage? This is a question from Leloop. So Leloop, I think there's basically a binary situation. Either you settled it or you didn't settle it. If you settled it, then that makes the story that you're telling the mortgage providers easier. If you haven't settled it, you haven't settled it. So it is kind of a binary situation. The next one, I think we're going to make this the second last question we have is from Nahid. Nahid says, I'm looking to buy my first property, but I'm scared that the bank will not give me a mortgage because of my current credit score. I wouldn't be scared, Nahid. I would go to a mortgage broker. So if you go to a broker, they will be able to check your eligibility for you without having any hard checks done on your file, basically. So that the first step towards a mortgage, I think, should be open up a conversation with one or two brokers, tell them what deposit you can put down, what kind of property you're willing to buy, and then let them come back to you with options. It's pretty unlikely that you can't get a mortgage. Like, basically, the better the state of your credit, the more deposit you put down, the wider the set of options are. So, if you don't have great credit, if you're putting down a very small deposit, maybe you'll get one or two mortgage offers from high-cost mortgage lenders. The better the state of your credit, the more your deposit, the wider your net becomes, the more options you have, the better rates you get. So it's not about trying to get a mortgage. I think it's about trying to get the best mortgage, because that's really, the best mortgage means thousands and thousands of pounds saved on interest. And then I think these are the last two questions. So, is 400 a good credit score and clear score for a mortgage? I know my score on clear score was somewhere in there at the time, not because I had anything bad. It was in the mid 400s because I didn't have anything on there at the time. So it's hard for me to answer that, actually. It's mainly hard for me to answer that because ClearScore uses Equifax and we report to Experian. So we know a lot about Experian, not a whole lot about ClearScore. So yeah, but I think that on this one, again, I would suggest to check with a mortgage broker. This may surprise you, but every mortgage lender will calculate their own score. So they will look at your score and your file, but they all come up with their own internal score, which they never tell you, but they'll come up with their own internal score. And that internal score that they calculate determines whether or not it determines what mortgage products, if any, you qualify for. So I think, honestly, a mortgage broker would be the best one to go through. I heard that brokers are hard to find these days, so I think this is the final question. Brokers are easy to find. They're everywhere, right? They're kind of like real estate. It's like real estate agents. They're super hungry for deals. So you'll find a broker. I mean, we are not partnered with anyone. We don't get affiliate fees from anyone. So if I share names, it's names from my, Faisal's personal experience. So there's free.co.uk, Trussell. These are two that that basically, one of them is run by a friend, another one I've used. So they're there. I think the real question is can you get a mortgage? What kind of mortgages can you get at the end of it? What are the options? At what rates? But what I have heard anecdotally is that the deposits that are required are probably slightly higher now, minimum 20-25% versus in previous days. In a better market before the crisis, I think it was lower deposit requirement. Nahid, so for brokers, if you want my personal recommendations, drop us an email. I think I mentioned two names anyway, free.co.uk and Trussell. But these are the ones from my personal recommendations. Great. I think we're going to wrap up now. My apologies to people who have just joined. This was actually just a half-hour office hours, but maybe next time we should do it better. would love to hear your feedback, on the office hours, what went well, what didn't go well, and anything else. If there's anything that you feel, if you weren't comfortable speaking up now, you want a one-to-one conversation, we do that as well. So we have a calendar link. It's calendly.com/getbits. So it's CALENDY.com/GETBITS. You can book a call with us anytime there. And I think that's it. Thank you very much for joining. If you're not already using Bits, give it a try. And if you enjoyed this, then do please send us feedback or leave us a review on the App Store. Thank you very much. All the best. Take care.